start our live feed to Facebook and then we'll get rolling. Kevin, are you flying over again?
I don't hear him. You hear him?
Yeah.
They must be coming this way. I'm starting to hear him.
Okay, we're live streaming to the village's Facebook page now. This is Todd Schmidt, the voice behind the curtain. Just a few logistical matters for tonight. Everybody should remain on mute unless you have an item up for discussion. Also for those besides Plan Commission members, if you don't have an item on for discussion, also have your video muted so as to minimize distraction from the meeting. The public who are participating as attendee are also automatically muted, unable to unmute themselves as well unless allowed by the host. And I don't think, Kevin, are there items that are going to involve public comments today?
Yes.
Okay, we have public hearings involved today, so there'll be a process when we reach those items for those attending to virtually raise their hand, at which point they can be brought in to participate in the meeting. Tracy, have you done that before?
No, hopefully I'll
Okay.
figure it out.
Okay, well, I'll hang out at the meeting from behind the curtain and help if needed. So with that, I turn it over to the village president to kick off the meeting.
Okay, there we are. Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting, Village Plan Commission meeting for May 11th to order. Roll call, Tracy.
Chris Zellner,
Here.
Bill Willems,
Here.
Kristen Runge,
Here.
Brad Zeman,
Here.
Brian Malish,
Here.
Chris Thomas,
Here.
Brian Wallace.
Here.
Okay, first item we have is minutes. Is that correct? Nothing under that. So then we're going to go to new business, which is our first item is a public hearing and discussion action on a request for, what's that?
From April 13th. It's at the very top of the second page.
I would move the approval of the minutes of the April 13th meeting.
Motion by Phil Willems,
I'll second.
second by Chris Thomas. Roll call vote, Tracy.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Phil Willems, Bill
Yes.
Willems, Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Here.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Minutes are carried.
Okay, first item we have under new business, public hearing and discussion action on a request for approval of certified survey map and rezone from A1 Agricultural Holding to C1 Commercial for proposed quick trip at the northwest corner of Peaceful Valley Parkway and South Century Avenue County Highway Q. Kevin, are you introducing?
I can. And Tracy, if you could share your screen and put up the CSM. So the site plan will come later in an agenda item. This agenda item is just for the certified survey map and the zoning, which is a change from the zoning of ag holding to a commercial use, but the commercial use is supposed to be restricted to the convenience store only, with the understanding that this entire neighborhood has not been fully vetted and planned out, and that we wanted to make sure that, you know, the convenience store certainly would fit in with most uses that there's been proposed around here, but without knowing the exact plan, what's going to occur around this lot, we thought it was important at a staff level to restrict this lot to the convenience store and fueling station and anything that goes along with the proposal to that particular use, because there's probably things in our convenience store that may or may not be appropriate depending on how the rest of the neighborhood is planned for. So with that, Chris, I would recommend that you hold the public hearing.
Okay, then I'm going to open up the public hearing. If you would like to make a comment on this, please raise your hand and Tracy or Todd will pull you in.
So there are 2 attendees participating. Bottom of the screen is an attendee. You have a raise hand button. If you care to participate, click that now. I see a panelist with a hand raised. Looks like that's the applicant, Mike Lawton. But I don't see anybody as an attendee with a hand raised, Chris.
Okay, raise your hand now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I think Mike probably wants to talk as part of the public hearing.
Okay, let's pull Mike in then.
He's already in. Go ahead, Mike. You just have to unmute.
Unmute. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I sound like that soap commercial. Okay. A couple things. I just, Brad Fry is on here from Quick Trip, so he may want to comment on some aspects of this. And Don, I think I saw him on the list of attendees here on my list of participants, so he may want to comment as well. The one thing I wanted to comment on was the covenants. That document, I believe that Quick Trip may have some questions about that. So all I would ask is that the conditions of approval be written in the usual way, dealing with the deed restriction, where it normally says that it's subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and the village attorney. I believe the recommended motion didn't include that when it came to the covenants in the rezoning and certified survey map motion. So I would ask that that be included there. We may have to deal with some questions that Quick Trip has on that. So that would be my request.
Okay, thank you.
And then this is Brad Fry. This is Brad Fry with Quick Trip. And again, we would ask the same for what Mike has asked. The restricted deed restriction was just thrown at us here today. So we haven't had the full opportunity yet to have our legal team review that. But if we could handle that with the village engineer and the village attorney after this meeting, we would prefer to have that noted in the minutes as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Tracy or Todd, anybody else? With their hand up?
No.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. My first comment, Brian Kleinmeyer, you're on, correct?
I am.
Can you please, the request that's being made from a legal standpoint, are we good there? And do you have any comments?
Well, ultimately, this is something where it's a recommendation. When we're talking about both the certified survey map and the zoning, tonight Plan Commission is making a recommendation to the Joint Plan Commission for tomorrow night's meeting, and then the Joint Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the village board for its meeting a week from tonight. And so ultimately, this is a village board decision. The one thing I would note is that, though, with respect to the zoning, and you can still have that, the condition that they have requested, you can insert into your recommendation if you so choose, and then the Joint Planning Commission could also insert it into its recommendation. The only thing I'd note is that for the village, since we are in the joint planning area, for the village board to approve a rezone, it has to also be approved by the Joint Plan Commission. And so tomorrow, the recommendation that is made tomorrow night, for example, and I'm not suggesting that this is going to happen, but if the JPC were to recommend denial, then the village board cannot approve it. So I just raised that and let everyone to know how significant tomorrow night's meeting is.
Okay. I'm going to go around to the board members and see if you have any questions in regards to this. Chris Thomas?
No
Actually, I
questions
should
at the
close the
moment.
public hearing. Did I close the public hearing?
I believe you did.
Okay,
Yes.
Chris Thomas, go ahead.
No questions at the moment.
Okay, Brian Wallace?
What, we're zoning it from agricultural to commercial?
Kevin, you want me? So the proposal that the staff is recommending is to rezone the lot from the egg holding district that it's in now to C1 commercial. But we also recommend that the rezone be subject to a deed restriction. And so that's, and essentially what the deed restriction, the purpose for the deed restriction is to put this lot in the same position that it was in back in May of 2019, when the village, when the plan commission's in April and the village board in May approved the general development plan for what was going to be, the Festival Foods development. So if you go back to that GDP, this particular lot was lot 3, and there was only one use that was allowed for it, and that was as a convenience store. And so what we've done is essentially take the language from the general development plan and put it into the deed restriction. I think it's for the reason that we wanted to have the property in the same position as the GDP, and also for the reason that Kevin had mentioned when he first opened up this agenda item, the fact that at this point in time, it's unclear exactly how the land west of Q is going to get developed.
No more questions.
No more questions? Okay. The jets are flying over my house right now. So Kristen Runge,
No questions.
Brad Zeman,
No questions here.
Brian Mallett,
No questions.
Phil Willems.
No questions. It looks like good use for the lot and a nice entrance into the planned subdivision.
Okay, I have no questions as well. So if we are inclined to make the motion, it would be a matter of if we're going to add the recommended recommendations as presented. Brian, would you want to comment on that?
Well, I would just say, so if you go to page 5 of your packet, there's 2 separate recommended motions. One that deals with the certified survey map, and the second that deals with the rezoning. The comments that were made as part of the public hearing, I don't think that there's any concern with what's in the certified survey map. So if you're comfortable approving the certified survey map, I think you can just make the motion that's on page 5. If you want to add the condition that's been requested as part of the public hearing to the rezone, you would take that same motion that we have there, and then you would just add at the end, subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney.
Okay, then I'm actually going to make the first motion to recommend to the village board and the joint plan commission that it approve the certified survey map, subject to final review and approval of the village engineer and incorporation of all village staff comments.
I'll
Do we
give
have
that
a
a
second?
second.
Brad Zeman, I have for the second. Do we have anybody that wants to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand. Otherwise, roll call vote. Tracy?
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Okay, then do we have a motion for the second motion? And please read it if you would from page 5, the second one, as Brian indicated.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the village board and the joint plan commission that it rezone the lot to be purchased by Quick Trip from A1 Agricultural Holding District to the C1 General Commercial District with the attached deed restrictions to be recorded on the lot.
And then Kristen, we would just ask that you add the final, what they had requested is subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney.
Subject to final review by the village engineer and the village attorney.
I'll
Second.
Thanks.
Okay, I've got a
And
motion.
thanks for that reminder, Kevin.
Runge, and I think Phil had it for the second. So I'm going to give Phil the second. Brian, did you have a second too in there, Wallace? I had Phil's voice first, so I'm going to go with Phil as the second. And then any other comments from anybody? Please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next item we have then is a public hearing and discussion action on a request for approval of the site plan and conditional use permit for Quick Trip at the northwest corner of Peaceful Valley Parkway and South Century Avenue, County Highway Q. Brian or Kevin?
I can start and Brian can add in. So this is the site plan approval, and Tracy will bring it up on the shared screen. But I think Don Tierney wanted to add a couple of comments, and we should ask the applicant if they're interested in making a presentation regarding the proposed site plan. We have a couple of comments regarding some issues we worked out with regard to the architectural of the building, as well as some trail improvements I'd like to discuss. So Chris, I think our first question is ask if the applicant, Don or the folks from Quick Trip, are interested with some opening remarks.
Okay, let's start with Don. Don, do you have any opening remarks you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll tell you one thing, if I didn't have Jerry running this phone, I'd be in big trouble. Yes, is there any way, Kevin, you could put those, I sent you a picture of these shelters, and that's the reason we wanted that flat roof on the canopy. We plan on having a beautiful park that overlooks this.
Got it. Chris, I'm just wondering, just for flow of, okay, forget it. Go ahead. Yes, it's up.
Okay, what you're looking at is the picture of a pair of trusses being built in my shop. One is, they're small. One is for the pickleball court in Kilkenny, and the other one is in the beautiful West Bridge in the Central Park. These are the same look that we want, overlooking the background of the Quick Trip, and that's why we really appreciate the fact that we can go with a flat canopy, because at a distance, that is what we want to look at. The other thing, on the north-south road, that would be the road that is on the westerly part of the site plan. That will head straight north, and we really would have had to only put a 70-foot right-of-way, and that road, as we went, I wanted to go with 80, so we could have a beautiful, with terrace trees, a walkway, so the people, the kids that would come across and go down Woodland Drive could walk up a beautiful walkway and come up that walkway, and that would be their way to the park. And as we plan the rest of this community, we would have a walkway that would be on the central spine that eventually would head west. And I don't know, Kevin, could you bring that picture up?
Tracy's working on it.
Okay. That is a picture that was taken on the Monadon addition to Savannah Village when we had a big open house. And it just shows the cool, just the way it feels. In other words, it goes to the park, it goes to the school. And that would be part of our plan. And we need the time to really work on this, but everything is kind of falling in place. But we put a lot of thought in the big plan so that Quick Trip would be put in there and it would all flow together. And it's going to be a beautiful plan. Other than that, I guess if there's any questions, otherwise that's it.
Chris, if maybe we could hear from the Quick Trip personnel, and Tracy can put back up the screen, the 3D perspective.
Yes, and this is Brad Fry with Quick Trip. And again, I thank the village staff for the time that we spent in March and April to work through a couple of the issues that we had to improve landscaping layout, circulation through the site with driveway improvement. And again, working hard to make this a special building and architectural plan for the village of Waunakee. As you can see, this is looking northwesterly from the intersection. And again, some of the landscaping trees have been lightened in color to be able to see more of the building features. The canopy here, again, like Don had mentioned, is a flat roof canopy. We did a 9-foot brick and a tan colored fascia. We did remove our stripe that goes through the canopy. Again, just to not raise as much attention to the canopy as we typically do. And then again, this still stays with our overall franchise colors and franchise look on the building, with the 2-tone brick, the green hip roof, and the tan ephes and gutter line. And that's all I would have for comment.
Chris, just from just adding a couple of comments at the staff level, and I'll ask Jason if he wants to add any more comments. I think when we worked through the architectural control, a couple of things that we thought were important was because the fueling station is, Tracy, if we can just scroll back to the 3D, or maybe you're letting me. Are you doing it, Tracy? Sliding down? There it is. Oh, too far. All right, here, let me try this again. So what we thought was important is that the fueling station is on the, I call it the back side of the building. So it's on it's on the opposite side of County Trunk Q. So it's not really a focal point. Really, the focal point is the building, and that has, the green hipped roof, which we think matches, consistent with what happened on the other building, on the other Quick Trip on the other side of the street. And that the canopy was really behind it, so it's being blocked by the building. And the other thing that we asked for was to really change the tone of the canopy so it blended in better, and taking out that red stripe that Brad highlighted. So we felt with those changes and adding the brick that this was an acceptable, or really a high standard convenience store that'll fit in well along this corridor. Jason?
Sure. So regarding the architectural, the only thing I would add to that is that, so I would agree with all that, and add that as illustrated, the canopy still is showing more of a white color than the tan for the building. And so recommending that those colors be matched, and that warmer color that's on the building. Are you going to pick up other comments? I also wanted to talk about the pedestrian pathways, but it sounds like you were going to hit that, Kevin.
Yeah, and Jason, I think I can share what you're recommending, and you've been consistent with this, is that we have this constant trail, the pedestrian trail access along County Trunk Q, from the Parkway going north up to Woodland Drive. And it's action that was previously taken when this Quick Trip and the Festival Foods, the Plan Commission had removed that trail system along the corridor with the understanding that it would be internal in the subdivision. What I've asked them for is a commitment to grade it, but not install it, so that at some point in the future, if it becomes important to the village that this trail system be installed, that we have the ability to do it, as well as I think we can talk to Brian about it, as how we could make this a requirement in future phases if we thought it was appropriate. Currently, the trail wouldn't go anywhere, and we don't know long-term what the planning will be around this building. It may or may not make sense to have that trail system along the corridor. I think we made that decision that it didn't make any sense when the grocery store was there with Quick Trip, but it might be that with some different, residential housing or whatever the ultimate planning is for that corridor and what's backing up to that corridor, the trail may or may not make sense. So we're keeping our options open, as I would call it, so that the trail can be installed at a later date and could be a requirement that they be installed at a later date. But hold off on that trail system until it's developed around it.
Could I add something to this, Don Tierney? Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, you can wait till after questions from the public, or you can do it now, whichever you prefer.
I just wanted to say that we put a lot of thought in this, and the north-south road was supposed to be 70 feet wide, and we voluntarily said, let's make it 80, so that when the kids would cross, push the button where the schools are, which would imagine the intersection of Woodland Drive and Highway Q, it'd be a very safe crossing to cross there. There's stoplights there right now, and that's why I wanted to make a wider road, 80 feet, so I could have a beautiful 10-foot walkway internally. It would be very safe for especially the kids.
Okay, thanks, Don. Okay.
Chris, I have Mike Lawton with his hand up.
Okay, Mike, do you want to present as presenter or as public? Go ahead, Mike Lawton.
Maybe it was a mistake.
Okay, well, let's if it was a mistake, maybe he can come in later.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. On the second of the two motions, can you include the same language about subject to review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney? This is the motion that deals with the CUP because it incorporates the deed restriction, and I think Quick Trip would like the ability to look into that further or discuss that. So if you could add those same words to the end of the second motion on this page, we would appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then let's open up our public hearing for anybody in the public that would like to address the commission. And Tracy or Todd, any hands up?
Not that I can see.
Nor can I. Looks like no public comments. There are 5 attendees at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll give you 10 more seconds here, folks. Okay, anything, Tracy or Todd?
Nope.
Hands up.
No hands.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing and open up to questions from Plan Commission members. We'll go opposite order this time. Phil Willems, any questions?
I have no questions.
Kristen Runge?
No questions.
Brad Zeman?
No questions here.
Brian Malich?
No, I don't think I have any questions. No.
You have comments if you don't have questions?
Well, I'm still wrestling on the canopy cover. I guess I don't really like that. I don't like the inconsistency, I guess. You know, now we're looking at third Quick Trip here in town. Two of them have the same canopy structure, one that we kind of lobbied for, in fact, on location number 2, and now location 3, it's out. And now we're back to a flat canopy. So I guess I heard the rationale or the reasoning behind it. Still just trying to decide if I like it or not. So not really a question, just an internal wrestling.
Okay, Brian Wallace.
I would echo Brian's sentiment about you've got 2 Quick Trips on that corridor, and Kevin kind of alluded to it a little bit as far as making sure that they're consistent in appearance. I would suggest that both of these be in the same manner as they come into town like that.
Chris Thomas.
There was talk of pedestrian walkway, like a trail, but what is the plans right now for pedestrian access and bicycle access to this location?
Kevin, do you want to take that?
Yeah, Tracy, if you could go to page 21 of 83. You'll have to zoom out. Yep. So this, Chris, it should show the trail system that's along Peaceful Valley Parkway, and then along this roadway where they called it Wind Drive, and there might be just some discussion about that. We want some consistency in terms of what that roadway is called, but it shows how the trail system would be internal to the subdivision. So along Peaceful Valley Parkway, and then along this roadway that would go north and north-south.
Okay, and then another question I have is on truck access. Is that coming in off of Wind Drive as well? Or do we not know that yet?
Truck access would come off of the Peaceful Valley Parkway. And if you go to the site plan, it'll show the revised access to the site, which accommodates the trucks. In fact, we might have a site plan that shows the truck turning movements. I don't see if I can find it within the packet. But to answer your question, trucks were analyzed to make sure they could get in, safely in and out of the site without blocking the intersections or blocking the roadway, so that they'd be able to smoothly turn in and smoothly turn out without having to stop or wait for vehicles to turn.
And this is Brad with Quick Trip. It is our SP 1.0, which show how truck movements would come into the site for both grocery and for fuel trucks.
It's 61 of 83.
There, thank you. Chris, does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I guess my last comment is, to follow the same sentiment that both Brian's had mentioned, but the canopy. And I also like to ask, are there any other differences between the 2 stores aesthetically besides the canopy?
Yes. So the main difference is the canopy, but I think as important is that the configuration of the store is flipped, so that I think what was important at the staff level, why on the other one have the hip roof on it, was because the fueling station was really out in front of the building. So that was what you what you see as you come into town. In this case, the canopy or the fueling station and the canopy is behind the store. So what you see as you drive into town is the structure itself. What else is different is that, you know, the bricks on the columns for the canopy are different. Really, we didn't want to overwhelm the canopy with what's being proposed. We think what the bricks going up, you know, more than halfway is appropriate. And then lastly, the change is, you may remember this, as part of the building, we had some upgraded brick materials that really match that east side of the road. The Animart and some of the other structures out there have some, and Boston's has like this, I call it like a field stone. So that was integral part of the Quick Trip on the east side of the road. This one on the west side of the road is the standard red brick, consistent for the whole building.
Okay, thank you. Only questions I have.
So I don't really have any other questions other than what's been brought up. And I'll just say from the canopy perspective, it's a little different situation in that this is not in that corridor that we talked about with the other Quick Trip, nor Main Street. And the fact that it's on the back side, I don't have as big of an issue with it. I also think that the tone of the color matching the building, it keeps it very calm within the whole look of that. If it were bright and we had, you know, gas up on the top with bright neons and it was white with stripes going through it, I think that would be a worse look. But I think we've toned it down in the back of the building. And in all reality, if this wasn't a Quick Trip and it was a Casey's store or something else, they would probably have a canopy that's just like this one. We wouldn't be requiring that more than likely, unless we're going to do that moving forward with all convenience stores with gas pumps, that we would be requiring that same look. So there are other stations in the village already with this look. And I think what we've done in requiring them to match the colors, I think they've done a nice job with that. So that's my opinion on as far as the canopy goes. As far as the trails, I think the trail is going to be a great addition within this whole corridor. I think the trail that's out front, I think my opinion is that we should wait on deciding what to do until we see a full build out of what's all going to be here. I don't think it makes sense in the beginning, other than if Don or one of you can answer, how are pedestrians going to get here right off the bat? Are all the roads going to be in from all different sides right from the beginning, just to make sure on that? And then is that trail that you're talking about that's going to go through the whole area there going to be in there right from the get-go? Those are my only questions.
Do you want me to say something, Chris?
Yeah, just as far as the trails go, how pedestrians are going to have access to the building right now on that side without the other structure in? So
It's a great question. One thing that's a little confusing, looking at the rendering of Quick Trip, when you look at that whole intersection, the 3D, it's on the plan that we build when Peaceful Valley is extended, a 10-foot trail. It doesn't show it on the 3D, but if you look at the actual plan, it's the 10-foot trail. So the trail that comes up from Kilkenny, we extend Kilkenny west, you'd push the button, and kind of where that old house is, that you push the button, you'd cross, and you'd be on a 10-foot trail. You'd be walking on the north side of the extended Peaceful Valley, and when you get to that intersection, we put a beautiful entrance in there with a set of arches, Kilkenny Farms, and then that trail would wind through that beautiful park we're planning. And the thing, getting back to the canopy, there's a huge elevation change, and that's why this really cool shelter would be what you're looking at. So if you're in Kilkenny Farms, or if you were down at Boston or Animart, you'd come up the trail, you'd push the button, you'd cross. It would be, the trail is the 10-foot trail. Today is on the north side of Peaceful Valley. It will continue on the north side, right along Quick Trip. And when it gets to the far west of that where Quick Trip is and what we call Wind Drive. You cross the street and walk into a beautiful park. If anyone there has been to the Monadon Park, you'll see that trail on top of the hill. It goes through the park and then it actually goes to the school. And that's why it's going to have a nice flow, because you can go from anywhere and you'll always go into the park, wind through this beautiful park. You'll be elevated. I don't know the exact amount of footage, but that's why you will really see with the flat canopy, you will see that beautiful, and those trusses we're building, that's just a little pickleball court truss, and the one in our central park, these will be huge, and it'll be a showcase for the entire village. And then you'd walk through that, and then on the west side of what we call Wind Drive, there'd be the 10-foot trail that would go out to Woodland and hook up with the 10-foot trail that goes to the intermediate school. And then the backbone, as you walk through this beautiful park and you'll see that shelter on top of that hill, then eventually that'll wind its way back to the intermediate school. And it'll have a lot of the same feel that we put in the Monadon addition to Savannah Village. And if you've walked the top of that picture was taken, we had a big event, and you walk through that beautiful park in Monadon, and then after you walk through the park in Monadon, you actually walk into the Arboretum School. And it's basically the same strategy, because it's what I call very tricycle friendly.
So maybe I didn't ask my question properly, Don. When is the pedestrian trailways going to be that people can get to this Quick Trip?
It will be put in when we put in the extension of Peaceful Valley. That trail, if you look at the engineering drawing, it's there. It doesn't show it on the 3D, but that 10-foot wide trail is part of extending Peaceful Valley. So that would be put in ASAP.
So what I'm getting at is from Woodland Drive, that area of town to the north, how are they going to access this by pedestrian?
That's why we went with what we call Wind Drive. That's the north-south road. We would build it out as far as Quick Trip, because I don't want to hastily plan the rest of it. We have the great concept of it, but when that is extended, we would build it as far as the Quick Trip CSM is, and then it would continue in our first phase of Kilkenny Farms. It would be built out with the first phase, and it would go straight north and hit the trail that's on Woodland Drive. But for now, the people there's a beautiful trail there now. On the east side, it's already built on the east side of Q. So therefore, the people can take that trail, push the button, and go to the extension on Peaceful Valley, and anybody could walk to the Quick Trip store.
Okay, so I'd prefer people not have to cross Highway Q twice to get down there from a pedestrian standpoint. So the sooner we get to that, the better with the trail. So those are my only comments. Staff members, any comments further from the discussion that we've had? Brian Kleinmeyer, any comments?
I would just note that, certainly if you want to make that addition to the second motion, the motions are on page 39 of your packet. Again, we have two separate motions, one related to the site plan, one related to the conditional use permit. I think it was the motion on the conditional use permit that Mike was asking to add the phrase subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney. And I would just point out that the conditional use permit, that if you were to recommend its approval, it's the one that I had emailed to folks today. It takes the same form as a lot of the written conditional use permits that we've approved in the past. And this one would be to allow the applicant to construct and operate a convenience store on the property, including car washes, fueling stations for gasoline, diesel, ethanol, or alternative fuels, and outdoor display and sale of merchandise that is approved by the village engineer.
Okay. Any other staff comments?
This is Jason. I didn't see my memo in the packet, so I want to be sure that others were aware of my recommendation that the issue of the exterior lighting under the canopy be addressed in the CUP, that it be no greater than lighting for other canopies in the village.
Okay. I'll make the motion to recommend to the Joint Plan Commission that it approve the site plan subject to final review and approval by the village engineer, incorporation of all village staff comments and conditioned upon village board approval and associated certified survey map, rezoning request, and deed restriction. Do we have a second?
I'll give that a second.
Was that Brad Zeman?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Brad Zeman. Any other comments? Raise your hand if you have a comment.
Hello?
Phil Willems?
Yeah. Wind Drive is a new one on me. Is that replacing, is that going to junction with Holiday Drive?
Phil, good question. We've, at the staff level, have recommended, and the fire department's recommended, that the plan is for that to intersect with Holiday Drive and that it be called Holiday Drive and not.
That's what I remember also. That's why the Wind Drive was new to me. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Please raise your hand if you have one. Okay, I don't see any. So Chris, roll call vote, please.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, then we have our second motion, and as requested for the, per conditioned upon the village board approval, do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Joint Plan Commission that it approve the conditional use permit conditioned upon village board approval of the associated certified survey map, rezoning request, and deed restriction subject to final review and approval by the village engineer and village attorney.
Second.
Okay, motion by Chris Thomas, second by Brian Wallace. Any other comments? Please raise your hand. Seeing none. Roll call vote, please, Tracy.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Phil Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman, Is that a yes, Brad Zeman?
Yes.
Okay. Chris Thomas
Yes.
and Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Third on our agenda is discuss and take action on proposal to allow the installation of street pole banners recognizing Waunakee High School 2020 seniors. Kevin, do you want to introduce this?
I can. And Brian's drafted the documents, and some of you may have followed that at the village board level. We had a discussion about honoring our seniors for the 2020 in recognition of graduation. And the concept that's been promoted by Tara Swab is supported at the staff level to have their senior pictures put up on the light poles. In order for us to do this, we need a village board resolution approved. And as part of that, the Plan Commission needs to take action and with a recommendation. So with that, the staff is requesting that the Plan Commission consider recommending to the village board, allowing for this special occasion, and really with the background that Brian provided in the cover sheet that really gives a justification that this is a one-time, there's some outstanding issues and reasons to allow this. It's not certainly tying us in for anything in the future, but because of the COVID-19, under these special circumstances, we're asking that the Plan Commission and the Village Board allow for this to occur. And the Village Board will take up the cost of this, but it's been indicated that the cost of this will actually be paid by others and not the village. Brian, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just briefly, we do have language in our village code that talks about sign exceptions, and typically we don't allow signs in the road right of way or on our property unless essentially there are signs, stop signs, directional signs, etc. There is language in the village code that allows us to create exceptions for this, although none of the exceptions fits. We don't have any language in our code for a global pandemic that causes the high school to be closed for 4 months and the seniors to not have their pictures shown in their normal locations. So basically, the normal language says this is something that could be approved by the Village Plan Commission. In this particular circumstance, I think it's best to have the Village Board act, but since the code already identifies the fact that the Plan Commission would be involved in the process, we wanted to bring it to you for a recommendation. And essentially the recommendation that we have is that you would, recommend to the Village Board that it's allow the banners to be put on the village light poles.
Okay, so we actually had this at the Village Board at our previous meeting last Monday, and the board unanimously pushed this forward to get to a resolution. I would say that the important things to understand is that the group did definitely represent that they would be covering all the costs that the village would be incurring to do this. I did not hear anything back from staff. Kevin, maybe you can weigh in on this quick as far as the time to do this. If Bill or anyone felt that this was going to be an undue pressure to them to take this up. And I think it's a good thing for our community to do for the seniors in this time frame, since they will not be having their traditional graduation, and we can give them that additional recognition with this. So Kevin, any comments back from Bill or any of the crews that would be doing this?
I have not heard any objections from our crews.
Okay. So Kristen, Phil, you were at the board meeting. Do you have any comments? Kristen, I'll start with.
Yeah, I'm just happy we can do something for the seniors.
Phil?
I like the idea also. I think there's the Department of Transportation will have to weigh in on the banners that are on 19.
Okay, then I'll go to the rest of the commission members if you have any comments or questions. Chris Thomas?
No questions. I think it's great that we're honoring the seniors.
Brian Wallace?
No questions. Think it's a great idea.
Brian Malish?
Same, no questions at all. I think it seems like a no-brainer opportunity. So, good.
And Brad Zeman?
Do it. Make it happen.
I missed that, Brad. Could you repeat it?
Great idea.
Great idea. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we need a motion then.
I'll make a motion to direct village staff and the village attorney to draft appropriate approval documents to allow the installation of street pole banners recognizing Waunakee High School 2020 seniors, and to bring the item back for further consideration at the May 18th village board meeting.
Motion by
Second.
Brian Wallace.
Second.
Second by Brad Zeman. Roll call vote. Any other comments? Raise your hand. Roll call vote, please.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, then we have our Westport Joint Plan Commission items. They're the same first two items that we had on the village board, or I'm sorry, not on the village board, on our Plan Commission meeting earlier. Do we have our joint plan members have any questions in regards to this? Everybody got, or you got it? All good?
All good.
All
Okay,
good.
then we need one final motion.
I move to adjourn.
Motion by Kristen Runge to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second.
Second by Chris Thomas. Roll call vote, please.
Chris Zellner,
Yes.
Bill Willems,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Brad Zeman,
Yes.
Brian Malish,
Yes.
Chris Thomas,
Yes.
Brian Wallace,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.